Let's talk to God. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk to God. Woo!
Good evening, everybody. Hey, how are you all doing? It's Cutler here, the Let's Talk to Cutler virtual book club, the Let's Talk to Cutler YouTube channel, the Let's Talk to Cutler time that we spend together on these Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it is the last Thursday of the year. How about that, you all? It's the last Thursday of the year. God willing, we will have made it to the end of the year, making our way on over into 2023. And I'm so thankful. I'm glad, I'm humbled, and I'm just so elated about new opportunities, new possibilities, new promises, new victories, new adventures, new experiences, all of those things that come with the new year. But before we focus on the new year, before we get into the new year, I really want to say thank you to those of you who have been with me for so long, encouraging me and motivating me to do what I do and then to do what we do. And for those of you who are just passing by and you're wondering, what is that guy talking about? What has he been talking about for the past almost 3 years? The story has not changed. It has been about inspiration. It has been about motivation. It has been about challenging ourselves to become better, to show up better, to be better, and to make sure that we show up tomorrow better than we did today. This has been conversations about seeing what we can do to make sure that we showed up better today than we did yesterday. So the story hasn't changed. The motto hasn't changed. None of that has changed. And we're going to go into 2023 doing the same thing. We're going to end 2022 doing the same thing, still inspiring, still motivating, still challenging us to show up, and still thankful that we are helping to save people's lives. One of my friends said to me a few days ago, that wasn't a few days ago, it was yesterday, as a matter of fact, after listening to the broadcast a couple days ago, he said, I hope that you realize you are changing people's lives. I hope after that conversation you had with us Tuesday, you realize that when you say, I'm trying to help save people's lives, that you really are doing that. And I am so thankful that we have been doing just that. I'm so thankful that I had a conversation with someone the day after Christmas, a young relative, and she said to me that it was this platform, it was these conversations that spoke to her during her moments of suicidal thoughts. It was one of the most powerful moments I'd ever had. And if you were with me Tuesday, you all know that I was all tears. Someone wanted to know near the end of the broadcast, why are you so teary-eyed? What is going on? And so just to recap, it was just a matter of me having had a conversation with a real person outside of this platform who said, your platform is making a difference. So when you say you're trying to help save somebody's life, she said to me, you helped save my life. And so I wanted to say thank you all again for that. So I am ending this year ultimately thrilled and delighted and charged to continue doing what we do, continue this conversation, just trying so much to continue to inspire and motivate. And so I'm glad to see so many of you. This is our last conversation for the year. So if you don't see someone that you normally see, send them a message, tell them, come on, let's talk to Cutler. This is our final end of the year conversation. We're going to really sit down this evening and talk about how to have a difficult conversation with yourself, how to do end of the year inventory with you, for you, about you. And it is not necessarily bringing anybody else in to judge you. It's not about bringing anybody else in to condemn you. It is about asking yourself, or asking me, Cutler, what can I do to gauge how well the year went? What can I do to gauge about how much of a success I was this year? What can I do to see what I did not do that I need to focus on, that kind of thing. So I wanted us to really just sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation among ourselves with ourselves, specifically about ourselves. So before we get into that conversation, I want to invite anybody who's stopping by for the very first time to go ahead and subscribe. And after you subscribe, please go ahead and click on the notification bell so that you will receive the alerts whenever I've gone live, and you will know whenever I've added new content. And as you're coming into the chat, I know it's premature, but as you're coming into the chat, and yes, disclaimer, I know it's premature, but it just happens to be our end of the year broadcast. Is our end of the year celebration. So for those of us who are in the chat, please feel free to go ahead and say good evening and say Happy New Year. And some people will say, oh, I don't want to say that. That's bad luck. I get it. I'm just putting the disclaimer out there. Consider this as our New Year's Eve party, our New Year's Eve conversation, maybe 2-3 days before New Year really gets here. So I just want to shout out now, just want to see what LTTC VIPs are in the chat room and who may have beat me over here. I just want to see Annie Cutler. She says, let's ride, get aboard. Tracy Johnson, hey, everyone. Good evening. T. Cutler, good evening, everybody. It's so good to see so many of you. It really, really is. And my face is smiling, and so is my heart. So when I look out there and see you all fabulous, and Wendy and Yvonne and McDina and Paula and Linda and MV, I'm so thankful for all of you. All right. I'm really thankful for all of you. I want to talk about really how to have a difficult conversation with yourself about year-end inventory, because so many times you all, and tell me if this is you, so many times, McDina said, Happy New Year. Where's the champagne? Well, I might just have to show up. McDina, I might just have to show up December 31st, ever so briefly, just to toast the year in with you all. I think about that. And some of you all have given me ideas about next year and projects and things that we can do and work on, and some other surprises that I will share with you all. So I can't run across the room. I think I have raspberry tea over there, so I can't run across the room and get my raspberry tea. But here's to you all. Happy New Year to all of us. But I know how sometimes we can get to the end of the year and we can beat ourselves up, and we can allow other people to beat us up and wonder, was I successful? Did I do okay? How did I manage the time that I had? Am I okay with myself? What is going on? And before we allow ourselves to condemn ourselves, and before we allow ourselves to be judged by other people, I wanted us to learn how to ask ourselves those difficult questions. McDina, what is interesting, you said do a Zoom meeting. Someone else sent me an email and asked me about doing the same thing. So absolutely, I'll definitely will think about that. I would definitely consider it. But as we get to the end of the year again, I want us to really engage in some self-analysis. I want us to engage in doing a personal inventory. And all I want to do this evening is to put out some of the questions that we could perhaps ask ourselves. I may have to go back and make a note in the chat, or somehow put it and pin it in our conversation, because these are questions that I want us to ask ourselves. And feel free to talk back to me, because I want to know, I want to hear from you all. I want us to talk as a team, as a group, as a family. Let's see. Fabulous says that you're sitting here, catching you with my young man sitting next to me. Make sure, Fabulous, that you tell him a hi from here on the Let's Talk to Cutler platform, and from Cutler here on this broadcast. It's so good to see so many of you. I'm just trying to read the chats while I'm talking as well. But I want us to learn how to do, as we end the year, I want us to spend these 1,800 seconds doing a self-analysis. And I'm just going to ask the questions, and you can answer if you're brave enough, if you want to answer the question in the chat, or just make a note. This may be a broadcast that you want to come back and take a look at before the end of the year. But let's walk through some questions. Cutler, do you have any questions that we can ask ourselves to see how well I did this year? Absolutely. One of the questions that you can always ask yourself is this: Have I accomplished a major goal for myself? That's one of the questions you can always ask, because what does it presuppose? It presupposes that at the beginning of the year, you went into this year with some ideas about what you wanted to accomplish, some ideas about what you wanted to do. As you're thinking about the questions for 2022, think about setting these questions up as you go into 2023 as well. So it means that going into 2023, you will want to set some major goals, but ask yourself for this year. This is something you can answer. Have I accomplished a major goal that I set for myself? Because that means that I had some yearly objectives that I wanted to have attained by the end of the year. So that is a question that you can ask yourself. And then if the answer is no, don't beat yourself up. Just recast. Just recast those goals. Don't beat yourself up. Don't walk in self-condemnation. Don't allow anybody else to condemn you either. Just move it. Recast it as a goal for next year if it's applicable, and keep right on going. I'm going to ask these questions and make sure that I offer answers so that we don't find ourselves in this dark, empty space and, oh, I didn't do what I wanted to do. Just recast the goal. That's all. That's one of the questions that you can just ask yourself. Was there a major accomplishment that I reached? If not, recast it. Another way of asking that question is this. Well, not even asking the same question, but now it is about motive and how you did what you did. Here's the question that you can ask. Did I do what I set out to do? Hold on, because here's where the question sort of changes. Did I do what I set out to do to the best of my ability? Remember, only you can answer these questions. This is not about anybody else coming trying to answer these questions for you, but these are goals. These are questions that you have to answer for your own self. Did I do what I set out to do to the best of my ability? Or could I have improved? Could I have improved any part of doing what I did? Mick Dine is so good to see. Excuse me. Thank you for publicly posting that I had a goal to attend and pass this graduate program. I did complete that one. Congratulations to you. We're so proud of you and so thankful, and we celebrate that with you. And so if you all have goals, I'm just going to acknowledge them while you're putting them in the chat. I'm going to offer the questions that we can use as self-inventory, but I'm also reading the chat because I want to applaud you as well. Think about this question. Did you do what you had to do to the best of your ability? Or could you have improved any part of doing what you do? That is up for you to ask yourself, and don't beat yourself up. If you realize, you know what, I didn't do it. I did it, but I half-handedly did it. I didn't do it to the best of my ability. I did it, but I didn't do it the best way I could. You recognize room for improvement. You recognize room for growth. That's okay. That's absolutely okay. These are difficult questions, and the questions are going to become a little more difficult, y'all. They're going to become a little more, I don't want to say intrusive, because I'm not asking you. I'm telling you to ask yourself these questions. Consider this one, you all. How was my attitude and disposition for the most part? Wow. That's the big question. When we look back over the year and we're asking ourselves some of these difficult questions. Hey, cousin, hey there. As we're asking ourselves some of these difficult questions, this is about when we get to the end of the year. How do I grade myself? How do I rank myself? How do I know how well I did with the time that I had? And nobody else can ask these questions of us but us. Nobody can answer these questions for us but us. So I'm trying to teach us how to have these difficult conversations. I'm trying to teach us how to have these difficult conversations. Ask yourself, how was my attitude and my disposition for the year? When you look over 2022, you have to ask yourself, was I harmonious and cooperative? Got to ask yourself that. Was I harmonious and was I cooperative? Or was I judgmental and nasty? Everybody's sending out the congratulations. I think that's wonderful. I love how we empower and uplift each other in the chat. I love that. But you all, let me know if you're asking yourself these questions. I'm having friends to dinner on the 2nd, and I have gotten plants to pass out at the end so that in the new year we remember to grow and nurture. Absolutely. So that we remember to grow and nurture in 2023. And sometimes we do it for ourselves, fabulous, and sometimes we do it as a part of a community. And where we didn't grow in 2022, we see growth opportunities in 2023. So this platform, this conversation is certainly not for us to beat ourselves up, but it is for us to ask ourselves the difficult questions and then say, if I fell short during 2022, I'm thankful for the grace to catch up and get it right in 2023. These are just things that I want us to have in front of us. As I go into 2023, I want to remind myself, make sure that your attitude and your disposition are always pleasant and positive and optimistic. That's the goal that I set for myself. Here's another question you can ask yourself in terms of these difficult questions. Did the habit of procrastination decrease my efficiency? Did I get caught up in procrastinating, putting off for tomorrow what I could do today? Did I keep putting stuff off and putting stuff off and putting stuff off until I found that I was not as efficient as I otherwise could have been? Did that happen to me in 2022? Only you can answer that question, you all. Tell me what you think about some of these questions that we're asking. Here's another question. I know it seems lofty, but you can ask yourself this question. Have I improved my personality? Have I improved my personality? Yvonne, I see what you're saying. Oh my God, procrastination. You have to ask yourself, did procrastination get in the way? And beyond procrastination, what about my personality? If we're sitting here spending this time together on these Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we're talking about becoming better, trying to show up our best selves, even in our worst situations, did I take full advantage of that? Did I improve my personality? And if so, what ways did I improve? Got to ask yourself these difficult questions, you all. Was I more peaceful? Was I a gentler person? Was I less boisterous? Was I more patient? Did I become angry and agitated less quickly and less often than I typically would have? Ask yourself these questions. I'm telling you all, this might be one of those conversations that we want to go back and replay because, Cutler, you're flying through these questions, but they're questions that we need to ask ourselves. Yes, I think I try to listen more. We have to ask ourselves these questions. What about this one? Did I have good follow through? I wrote some of these questions down, you all. Did I have good follow through? Do I have uncompleted tasks? Do I have a whole list of things that I just did not accomplish, that I just did not complete? Here's the word, was I persistent in following my plans through to completion? These are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. You want to know how you did in 22? Ask yourself these questions. Questions are going to become increasingly a little more challenging, y'all. Let's turn up the heat. I think this question is really going to turn up the heat on some of us as we do this introspective look at ourselves over the past 12 months. Have I permitted fear? Did I let fear affect my performance? Did I let fear affect how I showed up? Did I let fear affect my ability to progress? Did I let fear affect my ability to succeed? Did I let fear affect how I be? Think about 2022. That's a long time. I get it. That's 12 months of retrospective looking. But you have to ask yourself, did I ever let fear interfere with my success? Fear of so many things. Did I let the fear of poverty interfere? Did I let the fear of criticism and self-doubt? Did I let the fear of loss? Did I let the fear of aging? Did I let the fear of becoming sick? Did I let the fear of possible death? Did I let the fear of anything interfere with my ability to perform and to progress? You have to ask yourself that question. I had to ask myself that question. Because from time to time, we can be gripped by this thing. That is why I've spent time talking about these various subjects over the course of the year. You'll see that most of these questions that I'm asking tonight and I'm asking those questions of ourselves, and I'm challenging us to ask those questions of ourselves. They're topics that we've talked about over the course of the year. I come with an offering. I empower you to take self-inventory, to take a true, honest self-inventory. I empower you to ask yourself the difficult questions. In 2022, there were so many changes in the family, hard but good. Years of change are just hard, but make me ready to move forward. When I tell you, Fabulous, that probably summarizes what many of us want to say. Years of change and transition. There's an old hymn that says, time is filled with swift transition. Nothing on earth unmoved, naught on earth unmoved can stand. So many transitions, so many dynamics over the course of the year. And you try to settle your feet, you try to plant yourself, and you find yourself sometimes rocking to and fro. But it takes conversations like we're having this evening. I hope my conversations throughout the year has helped us to plant our feet, so that when the winds blow, that we have something to hold on to. I'm confident in who I am. I'm confident in whom I believe. I'm confident in my community. I'm confident in my network. I'm confident in my tribe. And so we've been talking about all these sorts of things. And now we get to the end of the year, to step back and see, how did I really do? Cutler, I know we had these conversations, but how did I really do as an individual? Have I been overcautious? Have I been undercautious? Have I thrown caution to the wind? Have I been so cautious until I was afraid and I was paralyzed by my caution? Got to ask ourselves those things. When did you know the hymn, hold to God's unchanging hand? And I'm telling you all, because sometimes you have to ask yourself, was I overly conscious? Was I overly cautious, rather, and cautious to a fault until I let it paralyze me? Or was I careless and I threw caution to the wind when I should not have? You've got to ask yourself that. We're at the end of the year. We've talked about all of these things. And so now, as we've talked about all of these things throughout the year, we're at the end of the year, and we have to ask ourselves, how did I do? You all know we talk about inspiration, we talk about motivation, but we also talk about a challenge. And now we're at the end of the year, and we have to challenge ourselves. We have to grade ourselves. We have to do this self-assessment. We have to do this self-evaluation to see, how did I really do? Because this channel is about trying to push us to the space and this place that's called better. Did I get there? That's the question. Did I get there? All these 1,800 seconds on these Tuesdays and these Thursdays, did I get there? MVI house projects to complete due to the pandemic. I did not let strangers in my house. I understand, McDonough, I let fear stop me from taking an exam, but we'll return from vacation. Thank you all so much for being honest in this chat this evening, because I promise you, your honesty, your transparency is helping someone else. Your transparency empowers somebody else to be transparent. Your honesty empowers someone else to be honest. Surely we didn't all dot every I and cross every T throughout the year, but this is an opportunity for us to say that to ourselves in the privacy of our homes. I missed the mark. But thank you, Cutler, for reminding me that all I have to do is recast my goals. Auntie, it's good to see you, my friend. All we have to say to ourselves is, you know what? I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to condemn myself, and neither am I going to let other people condemn me just because there were some shortcomings that I suffered during the year. Just because I let some shortcomings, or just because I suffered some shortcomings throughout the year, that's okay. I'm not going to beat myself up, but I will ask myself the difficult questions. I will ask myself, did I allow fear to get involved? Did I let fear get in the way of me being the success that I hope to be, that I wanted to be? Was I overcautious? Was I cautious? Was I undercautious? Here's another one, you all. We're asking ourselves the difficult questions. We're doing our own inventory at the end of the year. Here's another one. I'm telling you all, again, we talk about inspiration, we talk about motivation, but we also talk about the ability to challenge ourselves, because if we're going to get to a space that's called better, it comes by being challenged. Challenging ourselves to get out of this space of comfort. So here's a question. Ask yourself this. Some of you all may not like this question, but it comes with a true self-inventory at the end of the year. Have my relationships been pleasant or unpleasant? And those are my relationships with family and with friends and with colleagues and with coworkers and with associates. Have my relationships been pleasant or unpleasant? Some of us don't want to ask ourselves that question because many of us have suffered unpleasant relationships, and we have to ask ourselves, if it was unpleasant, has it been the fault of mine? Has it been partly mine, wholly mine? You have to ask these questions. We don't like those questions, but we talk about them in this safe space, in this safe place. Let me look back over last year. How were my interactions? How were my dealings with family and friends and coworkers and colleagues and associates and acquaintances? How were they? Were they mostly pleasant or were they unpleasant? And if they were unpleasant, was I partially or wholly responsible? This is about ownership. Another offering. I offer you the power of ownership. Some of my flaws were self-induced. I got to own it. Because if I don't own it, I can't help fix it. It can be half and half. Absolutely fabulous. It can be half and half. Jay Song for you said a space called Better. I'm going there. That Jay Song for you, that's where we've been trying to get this whole year. And I keep saying that better is not necessarily this lofty goal. Better is not 5 years from now. It's not 5 weeks from now. But better happens as soon as you believe it in your heart and mind. Better happens when you believe it. Got a couple more questions because we're only here for 1,800 seconds. These are questions for self-inventory, you all. You have to ask yourself, have I been, oh my God, have I been open-minded and tolerant, or have I been closed-minded and judgmental? I could almost end the broadcast on that one, but I got to keep going. You have to ask yourself, think about the conversations, think about how you've interacted with people, think about how you've responded to people, think about how you've replied to people, think about the opinions that you've formed, think about the words that have come out of your mouth. Ask yourself, have I been open-minded and tolerant, or have I been closed-minded and judgmental? Woo! These are some questions I have to ask myself, you all. These are the difficult questions for self-inventory that we have to ask. Have my opinions, the things that I've said, have my opinions and my decisions, the things that I've done, have they been based on feelings and speculations? Or did I take the time to do the research before making the decisions and before offering my opinions? Were they based on speculation and conjecture? Or did I do adequate research before I opened my mouth and guided somebody, before I opened my mouth and advised someone, before I opened my mouth and responded, before I opened my mouth and gave what I thought was wise counsel? Did I do the research to make sure that I could stand on what I said? Difficult questions that only we can ask ourselves. Have I done a good job at budgeting my time and my expenses and my income? Have I done a decent job? I'm telling you all, you may have to catch the replay for this one. You may have to invite somebody to sit down. You want to have a watch night? You want to have a watch night party? Get some friends, have a replay of this conversation, and see how you all answer these questions in your safe space with people that you can trust. Thank you all for your honesty. Paula says open-minded and working hard on being tolerant. Paula D, my friend, thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to be honest and share your position on that, because your position is probably that of many others. Wendy, thank you. A watch night party, get together, replay this, ask yourselves and your friends in a closed space where you can trust each other. Let's answer these questions, guys, to see how we did. How much time have I devoted to unprofitable things, wasting my time? How much, you all, these are difficult questions, but ask yourself, how much time have I devoted to doing something that really did me no good? Things that got me nowhere. How much time over 365 days did I spend doing stuff that really meant me no good and got me nowhere? These are difficult questions. We don't like to talk about it. Here's one that's going to challenge us, you all. Don't run away when I ask this question, but please click the thumbs up button, click the like button if you haven't done so. But ask yourself, here's a difficult question. I'll just have a few more, and I promise you, we'll conclude our conversation. But ask yourself this: have I done or said things that went against the grain of who I am or who I'm striving to become? Got to ask yourself that. Have I done or said things that went against the grain of who I am, who I would like to be, or who I'm striving to become? In other words, have I been guilty of any conduct that was not approved by my conscience? Has my conduct been in alignment with my conscience, or have I done things that my conscience wouldn't approve of? Difficult questions, difficult conversations that we need to ask ourselves so that we just don't meander from one day to the next. But these are questions that really would push us into that space that's called better. I've done things that go against the grain of who I am, the grain of who I want to be, the grain of who I strive to be, the grain of who I want to show up as. Have I done things? Has my conduct been such that my conscience would not approve of it? Just a few more. You all hang with me. Have I been kind to the earth? Have I been kind to the earth? The thing that I get to participate in, the space where I have been. Have I been kind to the earth? And this is not just the people. This is just the earth itself. Has my presence polluted the earth, this space? Literally and figuratively, have I polluted this space, or have I helped to take care of it? The difficulty for me will be to honestly answer the questions. Linda, that is the difficulty for many of us, my friend. Looking at this, because we don't want to come face to face with some of our failures and some of our flaws, some of our foibles. But I want to empower us. Thank you, Linda. I want to empower us tonight to be able to honestly answer these questions. Because only when we can be honest with ourselves, only when we can be brave enough to even ask ourselves these questions, will we at least attempt to answer them. Some people go year to year to year to year, and they don't even ask themselves these questions. But we are in the space tonight where we are empowering ourselves to at least ask the questions so that we can answer them. This may be the most challenging conversations we've had this whole year. Yeah, Cutler, I want to be better. You talked about things that made me laugh and made me cry and made me do a whole lot of things. But now this is what challenges me. I got to ask myself these questions. Have I been kind to the earth? Wow. You're right, Sonia. Coming face to face with our flaws is different. But if we can do it in a safe space where it's just me and nobody to condemn me, nobody to judge me. And so that is why over the course of the year, I've talked about conversations of non-condemnation. I've talked about conversations of hope. I've talked about conversations of self-esteem and self-appreciation, so that we see I am somebody. There's value in me. There's substance in me. And I may not measure up to the extent that I want, but that does not decrease or diminish my value. And when I see my flaws, that I come face to face with the flaws, you will never attempt to pour out what you don't see that needs to be poured out. If I don't look at the flaws in me, I'll never try to empty myself of those flaws. I can live with it. I'm okay. I'm content. I could deal with it. But thank you, Sonia. You're right. Coming face to face with your flaws is difficult. But I empower us to do it, because if we really want to be better, remember I said sometimes we're pushed and we're poked and we're prodded and we're pulled along. This is a little bit of all of it tonight. Got to ask myself, have I been kind to humanity? Not only to the earth, and not littering figuratively and literally, but what about humanity, this thing that I'm a part of, where I link up hand in hand with my brother and my sister of all races and creeds and colors and religions and beliefs and ethnicities? When I link up hand to hand with everybody, have I been kind to humanity? Overall, I'm trying to get us to see and ask ourselves, would I consider this a successful year? And I got one for you. Get together and have a party with people, have a watch party with people that you can trust. Ask these questions. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how would the people closest to me rate my overall performance in dealing with people? How the people closest to me, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being horrible and 10 being excellent, how would the people who are closest to me rate my overall performance in dealing with people? When they step back and they see, Cutler, when I look at how you've dealt with people, how would my friends rate me? Wendy, this is a holistic approach to better. It is indeed. And may I end this conversation by saying this to us all. I know these are difficult questions. Song for you. I'm going to have to do a replay to get these questions. Yes, please do the replay. Invite your friends. I hope this conversation is one of the most popular of the whole year, because I want to conclude you all by saying this. I know these are difficult questions, and I know then Linda trying to formulate the answer and being honest is sometimes difficult as well. But you all know me. I like to end with something. I like to say something that inspires. Whatever you did or did not do, I want to remind you of 2 things. Your success, your excellence, your goals, your victories, your showing up in this space that's called better, none of that is restrained by time. None of that is confined to time. None of it. A lot of us, do I have any witnesses in the chat before I go? I know I'm just a little over time, but you all help me out. Do I have any witnesses chatting with me tonight? None of your victories or your successes or your excellence, none of that is restrained by time, because here's why I need some witnesses. A lot of us set goals based on age. We used to say this: when I'm 21, I want to do this. By the time I'm 25, I want to do this. By the time I'm 30, I want to do that. And may I tell you that I discovered that what I was doing was setting myself up for failure and disappointment every time. Because I had to realize that time was not made for me. Time was not made, I was not made for time, but time rather was made for me. What are you saying, Cutler? I am not confined and defined and restricted by time. And so rather than saying by the time I'm 21 or by the time I'm 30 or by the time I'm 40, I just stopped saying that. And what I started saying was, before I check out of here, before I go, before I close my eyes, before I die, that was my goal. If anything had to be constrained to time, that's what I would say. I took the limits off time because I would set myself for a disappointment. By the time I'm this age, I want to have my first car. By the time I'm this age, I want to have my first house. By the time I'm this age, I want to have my first degree. By the time I just stopped saying that. And I said, God willing, by the time I leave here, I want to do that. So that's one of the things I want to remind you of, that you're not restrained by time. And the second thing, I have to tap into my faith, you all. I got to go here. The second thing I want to remind you of is that there is such a thing as grace. There's such a thing as grace. And my faith says to me that God gives us grace every day. I got to end on this note. God gives us grace every day. Learn to extend it to yourself. Learn to extend it to yourself. After all of these difficult questions, after earnestly saying to ourselves that we're going to try and answer them honestly, for every shortcoming, for every shortcoming, for every flaw, for every fumble, for every foible, and for every failure that you see that you have experienced. Learn to give yourself grace. That is my hope and my wish for all of us. That as we summarize this year, as we do a summation, a recapitulation of what the year has looked like, it is my hope that you learn to extend grace to yourself and extend it to others. May I say thank you all so much for spending this year with me. Thank you for these Tuesdays. Thank you for these Thursdays. Thank you for these 1800 seconds. Our conversation, it is true. And there's now power behind the phrase that I'm just trying to help save somebody's life. I testified to you all a couple of days ago that this conversation we're having helped pull some people out of the brink of suicide. I will never be the same for having sat in the space and heard that. Let's go into 2023. Let's go into in 2023. So would grace be your motto for 2023? Absolutely fabulous. That is going to be a part of the not only 2023, but for the remainder of my life. Let's learn to extend grace to ourselves and grace to others. May I say Happy New Year to all of you, because I think by the next time we see each other, it will be the new year, unless I show up. And if I show up, you all make sure that you show up with me. I might have champagne or something just to say, cheers, here's to the new year. Please know this. Let's keep building community. Let's keep maintaining connectivity. Know that from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. I'm thankful that you all have been along on the ride with me this year. My life has been so much better because of you all. Happy New Year. Take care. And I will see you all the next time. Good night, everybody.